he knew, hey, if you trust me, if you keep going, I'm going to use this to help others. And that kind of sparked in me of, oh, God hasn't forgotten me. Like he's...
Tell me what you're waiting for, the best is all for you. I gotta pray some more since I come home to you. I had to line it up, and they say we shouldn't shine it up, but that's just how his timing was, and look at what we do. They cannot tell me nothing, baby, the way you walk, I love it. And if you take too long, I'm rushing. I come the way you are, just trust it. Then we gon' love forever, and we gon' ride this thing together. I got my mind on you whenever, I keep my eyes on you forever. Man, we got the kind of love that says...
Welcome to the Progress Podcast, where we dive deep into marriage, family, faith, and love. I am your host, Selah Fugit. Today, I have the pleasure of having a guest with me. I met this person at a empowerment brunch, not knowing that we were part of the same faith community, and that we were actually at the exact same church. And so it's just been really beautiful how God has orchestrated this friendship that's built on sisterhood and motherhood and our faith and just love. So it is my joy and my honor to welcome Michelle.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really, really excited.
Yes.
And it's just us today, y'all. It's a whole girl chat.
It's a girl time.
We got rid of Russell. Because we really want to jump into some conversation that is just for us. And we really wanted to have this space for women. So like every episode, we are going to get started with a Bible verse. And I've actually asked Michelle if she would share our Bible verse for today.
Yes. So the Bible verse is Romans 8:28. We know that all things work together for the good of those who love God, who are called according to his purpose.
Amen. Yes. Amen. All right. So we're going to jump into your story. Mm-hmm. So I know a lot about you. Our audience does not know a lot about you. I knew you grew up in church and you've experienced some challenges in that. And I just would love for you to share a little bit about yourself and your background, and then we'll jump into some questions.
Well, I first and foremost just want to say thank you so much for having me. You know, I'm in my journey of healing and really kind of deconstructing my faith. It's been so amazing to meet certain people that are calling forth that part of me in my life that I knew that God had called me to, right? But sometimes trauma and certain situations in life can almost cover and hide us from living out that purpose that God's placed in us. And pain, man, it can do a number on us. And so today, I just hope that I can inspire somebody who grew up in the church, or maybe they're new to the church community, but they are questioning their faith in God due to going through something traumatic and hard in their life. So I'm gonna start from just first of all, my name's Michelle Valorae.
Sorry, I got so excited. I totally forgot your last name.
Michelle Valorae. I'm an author, the author of the book Girl Thriving.
We have a copy right here.
And it is a 31-day guide to help you rise above your past and thrive in your future. And I wrote this book because I'm a mentor as well, and I've been mentoring specifically women who have experienced trauma in their life, specifically sexual abuse and domestic violence. And in my time of mentorship in the last 10 years, I had a lot of women coming to me saying, Michelle, like, where do I even begin when it comes to healing? Yes. Where do I even start? Mm-hmm. And for me, you know, I've gone through therapy, years of therapy. I've had mentors in my life that really helped me know how to start my healing journey. But not all of us have mentors and people speaking that life into us. So I created this guide to really help you start the process of healing, really dig deep into those questions we have to ask ourselves.
I actually dug into it this week.
And you did?
Yes, and there were so many good questions.
Thank you.
I was like, wow, I didn't think of that. You know, so there are so many thought-provoking questions that really make you dive deep into yourself. So you're right. If you don't have that mentor, you could get the book and just walk through it. So I was encouraged by the questions.
Thank you,
You're welcome.
So yes, I'm the author of Girl Thriving. You could get that on Amazon. Mm-hmm. I also am a motivational speaker, a TV contributor, and I work at House of Ruth, Maryland. So that
Amazing.
is a nonprofit in Baltimore, but we service all throughout Maryland, the ones fleeing intimate partner violence. So I work in the Safe Homes program where I help ones that are literally fleeing get into safe housing. So it's been a blessing.
And challenging, I'm
and
sure.
challenging
Yeah.
as well. But I was asking God to really put me into a job that was in alignment with my purpose in life, and he sure did.
Amen.
So,
Amen. That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So if he's put you in line with your purpose in life, you've obviously experienced some of this that you
Yes.
could relate to people. So you've
Yes.
experienced some domestic violence and all of that. So
Yes.
you have a deep understanding of when you work with these women of,
Yeah.
what they've been through. I know that you grew up in church and you went to Bible college and you did all the things right. But life doesn't always turn out like
Yeah.
you hope it would. I know I've experienced that in seasons of my life. How have you dealt with that, where you thought you did all the right thing and then things weren't as you thought they would, or as the church made us think that everything
Yes.
would be? Because I definitely thought if I did this, if I did that, I would have this life. And growing up, no one ever really talked about the challenges that come along with being a Christian.
Yes.
Or walking out your faith.
Yeah, I think that this isn't for all churches, and but there are definitely people within the church community that make it out to seem that once you follow Jesus, everything is, great.
Yeah.
That
Peaches and rainbows.
yes, rainbows and butterflies. And I grew up in the church. Starting at age 5, I was on stage singing. And
I
with
didn't know
me with my
that.
twin, yes. So we always had a heart to sing. I've always loved singing and writing. And I thought that my purpose in life was to be a worship pastor one day. So me and my identical twin sister, we started singing very young in church. And then we were in ministry starting at age 13. So we were leading at a very young age. So we weren't really allowed to make mistakes or just be kids, let alone teenagers, right? So, but for me, I felt always very close to God. And I knew that singing was something I wanted to do as far as worship and glorifying God. But at age 13, we started our ministry called Live Above the Culture. That is when it was a purity ministry. Okay. So I don't know if you know, at that time was the purity movement.
Girl, I was part of that too.
Yes.
And I had already not been pure at that point. And my mom was like,
Yeah.
I'm putting you in this purity class. And I was like, oh God.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know what to do at 16,
Yeah.
17 when I had already lost my virginity. So yeah, I was definitely part of the purity culture also.
And we're hearing more so now, people are really coming out about how toxic it was and damaging parts of the purity culture movement were.
What's up, friends? What's up, family? Thanks for watching and listening to the Progress Podcast. We really appreciate how you've been a part of this journey so far. It's been a quick few months that we're here, and we're really excited to continue going forward in this journey. We really would appreciate having your support via a donation. Check out the links in the description to consider making a donation. Your contribution allows us to continue to bring this content to you at the highest quality and to continue to secure the best guests, to continue to sow into you and to continue this journey going forward. So check out the links in the description. Thanks for being a part of this. We're really excited for all the things to come as we make progress.
And so I was just told, you wear the purity ring, you save yourself until marriage. And this is something, I know men were doing it too, because we saw with the Jonas Brothers,
Yes.
they were doing it. But specifically for women, I was taught that if you are not a virgin when you're getting married, a Christian man is not going to want to marry you. That's what I was taught. Now we know that's not the truth, but that was my belief system, right? And I grew up in an abusive household. So my father was abusive, and yet he was a Christian man. So I saw from a standpoint of how religion can be used in an abusive manner, right? And so I already had a distorted view of God. And then on top of that, I thought, okay, so it's about doing all the right things, do this, and then you will be blessed and you'll have a prosperous, great life. Now, that's not what I see in the Bible when I actually read it, right?
Same.
But that's just that was my
presented.
core belief.
Yeah.
And my entire worth and identity was in my virginity. So I held it so close to me. And I didn't really date much. I didn't really have a boyfriend. We didn't party. We didn't do anything crazy or wild as other teenagers do. And I just did church and ministry. And me and my twin, when we got into 10th grade, we started doing online schooling so that we could then travel with our ministries. So we would go up and down the East Coast speaking to churches at 15, 16, and 10th grade.
That is,
yes.
That's insane.
And singing and talking to the youth groups about why it's important to save yourself, right? But I had no knowledge of God's grace. It was very much do these good things, good works, and then God will bless you. If you don't, he won't bless you, which is not true.
Not true.
Right?
Not true at all.
That's not the God that I serve.
Neither.
Right? But these are the things that then led me to really not only have a distorted view of God, but have a distorted view of myself and my worth. And when I turned 18, it was time to go off to college. And the only thing that I was told I could do was Bible school. And really, I mean, at that point, that's all I had been working toward was ministry, right? So I was like, okay, this makes sense. We're going to go off to Bible school. Me and my sister, we went to Christ for the Nations in Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
Yeah, so we went there and we were studying worship ministry, pastoral ministries. So I, in my head, thought, okay, I'm going to meet my husband here. We're going to get married, have kids, and be in ministry. And that was the goal.
That's what a lot of women go to Bible college
yes,
for. Yeah,
a lot of women. They're
they
like,
go
I'm
for
gonna
their
meet my husband
MRS degree.
Wait, say that again?
The MRS.
What is
Mrs. Oh, they go to get their MRS degree. It's a real
I've never
thing.
heard that, but yes, I've never heard it in that way.
Oh my
but
gosh.
yes, it's
well,
so
I
true.
lived at a Bible college for years.
Okay,
so
okay.
I lived in marriage housing. I lived at Bible
my
college. I
gosh.
knew how many women that were there. And
Yeah.
they would be honest. I'm here to find a husband.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
here to get my MRS degree.
Yes,
So no, that's the purpose for a lot of people for Bible
Mm-hmm.
colleges.
And that was just, we were all of my friends there. Like that's what, and I saw many of them meet their husband and get married and be in ministry, have kids. Unfortunately, not all of them are still together.
Yeah.
And I think it's because we rush into it. Okay, we're saving ourselves, so we need to rush to get married, and we don't actually take time to get to know the person. And you know, that's a whole other topic, I feel like. But yes, it's definitely intertwined with my story because
Was there ever a time in that people would say it's God's will? Because I got that too. There was a lot of like pressure of getting married and saying it was God's will for me to get married young because of the purity culture.
yes, because of the purity culture.
A lot of pressure. Like you need to get married young. You need to get married young. So I experienced that also pressure from the church in the purity culture. It was like, this is how we're going to keep people pure. We're going to force them to get married really young. But I saw the same thing.
Yeah.
Marriages that didn't last.
Yes. Yeah. And I feel like men too, they just rushed into marriage because the thought of waiting any longer, you know, it's a hard thing to do. It's possible, absolutely. But I think that there's so many different aspects and pieces to the puzzle when it comes to the purity culture. And I want to make it very clear, your worth and value is not in your virginity. Our worth and value is solely in Jesus, right? But I think we can easily mix this idea that our worth is in our actions. Now, although it is important, like there are reasons why God set aside guidelines for us to follow. There's reasons for that. And I 100% agree with trying to save yourself until marriage if you can. And that's something I'm going to teach my daughter. But as long it's important to know that at the end of the day, if something happens, you have not completely lost your value. And so for me, when I was in my third year of school, I went out to a restaurant to celebrate Cinco de Mayo with me and my twin sister. And when we went in there, I noticed my waiter was paying extra attention to me. And now, granted, I didn't date much. I didn't have much attention. My father was abusive. So I was already very vulnerable. To any type of attention I was getting, right? And I noticed he was paying a lot of attention to me. He was looking at me a certain way. So I picked up on that immediately. But me and my twin were like, we're just here to eat tacos and have iced tea, you know, and then go home. They had like a patio dance party outside. So the waiter said, hey, now that you're done, why don't you guys come outside and I'll get you some drinks. Well, we don't drink. But he was like, it's fine. I'll just bring you your teas, whatever, right? So the minute we go outside, my twin sister is sitting next to me. And about 10 guys came over and surrounded her, started giving her all this attention, joking with her, laughing, all these things, bringing her tea, like all these things. And then I'm sitting there alone, and my waiter comes over and brings me my tea. Thought it was harmless, right? I drank it, and we're chatting, and I don't know the time frame, but I started to feel like I was drunk. My body started to go numb. I'm kind of in and out. I'm like, I'm so confused. I've never been drunk before. And I was drinking sweet tea, right? And in and out. And I am going to be very vulnerable here because, this is real life, right? This is real life.
It is.
And my memory kind of goes in and out. And then he pulls me behind the building and it's like, hey, I want to show you something. So we go behind the building, and before I know it, I'm being raped. And so this is real life,
Sorry. I am so sorry, Michelle. I'm so sorry. Take your time.
I'm sorry, the big brother just came out of me. All my muscles started to pop up. I'm angry. I'm angry.
And the reason I'm crying.
You want to cut it? You want to cut it back in?
No, you're good.
Oh,
Right.
keep going. Okay.
The reason I'm crying is not because I'm still holding on to it, but because honestly, Sela, I've shared my story a lot in mentorship settings, and I've shared it in my book, but details as far as from A, B, C, I haven't really shared on a public platform. And I'm grateful because, it's reminding me of how far I've come.
You have. You've come so far. And there's healing in talking about it. There's freedom in talking about it. Even on a podcast. I know because I shared early on in 2021 my sobriety story. And that was so embarrassing and personal for me. And then there's come so much freedom out of it. God can do so much in sharing and healing others. She's been through that, and look at her now, gorgeous and thriving, and a mom, and all the amazing things. It's like, if God could do it for her, he's going to do it for them.
Absolutely. He will, and he can. Yes. And for me, after that night, because he just brought me back and sat me down and left. So Heather's then looking at me like, where did you go? My twin. And the guys kind of just dissipated. And I look back and I'm like, it was obviously planned. And I know there's no way I could be the only one that this happened to at this restaurant. But I was confused as to, did that really just happen? Because I was a virgin. I didn't have much experience, right?
Yes.
And so I'm going into, did that really happen? I'm in and out. My sister just brought me to the car. We went home. Back to campus. And then I had to process what happened. And my twin helped me process what happened. And when I tell you, my life after that was never the same. But I will say the hardest part of my healing was realizing my worth was not gone. It wasn't taken from me. No one can take your worth from you.
Can't.
But because of the false ideology I had of Christianity, of who I was in God, I suffered greatly, even more greatly than I think I would have just from dealing with the rape. Because now I'm dealing with my whole worth is gone. I thought that if you pray and if you do all the right things, God promises to protect you.
Yeah.
And for me, I had spent years since I was 13 writing letters to my future husband every night. So I had this giant box under my bed for my husband, right? I'm like, I'm saving myself for you. I can't wait to meet you. And that might sound cheesy to some, but in the Christian realm, that was so kind of what you did, right?
No,
you pray
so
for your
sweet.
future husband.
Yeah, I pray for my kids' future husbands now.
Yeah,
Yes.
And I believed wholeheartedly that was going to be my story. So when it wasn't, you can imagine I'm literally at rock bottom trying to figure out, okay, who am I? Because my whole identity was in purity ministry, purity culture, all of that. This anger that came over me toward God. I'm going to be honest, toward God. And God is my father. So it's not going to be a perfect,
No,
you're
true.
allowed to, at least for me.
Lament. You're allowed to lament and get angry. I have many times.
But every time I'm just like, God, please show me, help me understand. I am so mad. I'm so hurt. I'm so broken. Help me understand, because what I believed is not reality. So now I'm having to deconstruct everything I was taught and then rebuild on a solid foundation. And, this happened to me, 11 years ago. So it's taken a long time for me to get to this point, but I will tell you it is possible if you are intentional about rebuilding and intentional about healing. But for me, because I really felt like my entire soul was stolen from me, and there's a spiritual side to it too, and I want to kind of speak on that, is that, everything is spiritual. And we are battling against not flesh and blood, but spirit and principalities.
Yes. Principalities and rulers of the dark.
Yes, and that's in Ephesians.
It is.
And I had to remind myself, like, this is deeper than just what I'm seeing. The enemy is out to steal, kill, and destroy whatever God has set forth for us, right? Yeah. And the enemy knew that my entire core being was in my purity. Yeah. And I think a lot of us question, why does God allow bad things to happen? And I don't know if we'll ever fully know that answer, but I do know that God doesn't promise to make our lives perfect or easy, because we live in a fallen world.
Exactly.
And we have free choice as well. But he does promise to help bring us through. And we see that time and time again in the Bible, in the stories, that people went through hardships in the Bible. But God brought them through and restored. And I am a testimony that God can restore. But
God is using this to help other people.
Yes.
And this book and all you're speaking and what you're doing with House of Ruth, like he's just using all of this for his glory.
Yeah.
Despite what the devil tried to kill, steal, and destroy.
Yes. And now I have a completely different perspective. And I'm grateful for this perspective, because I know so many of us have questioned our faith.
Yes.
And I think in a sense, it's good for us sometimes to question things. I think we're allowed to question, okay, God, why did you let this happen? Because I'm coming from it from a standpoint of, I want to learn. Yeah. So please teach me so that I can know you more of who you truly are, and not just what we've been taught or forced to believe, in a sense, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Your story is so beautiful. Thank you for sharing it. It's tragic and it's sad, and I'm so sorry that happened to you, but it's like what you've made out of it, what you've decided to do with your life is so beautiful, because you could have rolled up in a ball in the corner and cried and never came out, and a lot of women do get stuck in their trauma. Yeah. So you're so brave that you had the ability to do what you're doing and to talk about it now and to share. So thank you.
I will say the only way I was able to get out of that pit was through a mentor. And so 2 months after I was assaulted, I ended up coming home, and now I was back.
Left school?
I graduated actually like 2 weeks after I graduated, and then came home. And then now not only am I trying to heal from being raped, but I'm trying to now navigate that while living back in an abusive household. And everything about my father started to come forward at that time. So CPS had been called on previously, and I knew these things, but it was always defended and protected, right? So now I'm trying to figure out, how do I heal while being back in this house? And for me, I just knew I needed to get out. So I ended up entering the sex industry, and I became a stripper. And and whenever I look back, part of me felt like that was all I could do now. Wow. It was a huge part of my identity. Like, my identity was so distorted now because of that belief that my worth was in my purity. So now I believed, well, no Christian man is going to marry me. I'll never have a ministry like what I thought. Everything I had been living up to this point was gone in my mind. And for me, I was like, well, this is the best I'm going to do now. That's truly what I believed. No man's going to want to marry me. I don't know if I'll ever be a wife, you know?
Yes.
And while I was in the strip club industry, I discovered a lot of other women in there like me. It was crazy.
Yes.
I was meeting some of the most kind, powerful women, but their worth was completely destroyed. So they believed, well, this is where I'm meant to be. Now there are women in there that want to be in there, and you know, I'm never going to judge that. But I know personally how it really does devalue a woman.
It does.
And seeing so many women in there that were like me, that had similar stories. I mean, the percentage is like 93, 95% of women that are in the sex industry were sexually abused prior to entering.
I didn't realize that.
So in my journey of seeing how I reacted to my pain of sexual abuse, then seeing all these other women around me reacting in similar ways, I started to like, wait, there's something here. And I ended up leaving after 6 months. And the only reason I left was because I had a mentor in my life that kept speaking like God's purpose over me. It was
I
like,
wanted to ask you, how did you find this mentor? Because a lot of women that are in these situations don't know how, don't see a way out. So how did you go about finding this person?
so this is a crazy story at a conference.
Okay.
So I've always, because I grew up going to events and doing things, I've always kind of found myself in those types of environments. Even when I was so broken, I was attending these conferences in hopes of finding healing, right? So if you really do want to heal, it's very important it's up to you. Yes. My mentor said, I can't drag you into your destiny. You have to be willing to step forth into it. And so if you are in that place where you're like, I want healing, I want to do better for my life, well, it starts with you. So you have to be willing to take that step forward. And for me, thankfully, I've kind of always had that in me where like, I'm very self-aware. And I knew, even though I believed I belonged in there, there was always that thing, a small part of me that was like, I know I'm not meant to be in here. I know it was that mustard seed of faith, you know? But I went to this conference and met one of my mentors. She's actually been my mentor for the longest time. She's one of my longer mentors I have had. And she, at the end of the event, she shared her story, and she's a survivor of sexual abuse. Okay. So that was a big thing for me. It was, okay, and I just remember crying the entire time when she's sharing her story. Afterward, she asked us to stand in a circle so she could pray over us. Well, there were a good amount of women in there. So I was sobbing. I'm like, I don't want to be seen. And at that point in my life, I just wanted to hide in every aspect of my life. And there was a lot of darkness over me. You know, from a spiritual standpoint, I felt the heaviness, the weight.
Yeah, I've been there.
And it was like a suicidal spirit that kind of came over me. And when I tell you, I suffered greatly of battling that I still have a place in this world.
You do.
And it was that mustard seed of faith that just kept telling me, like, Michelle, I'm going to use this. Don't give up. Yeah. But it really took people in my life to help me see that. Because if I didn't have that, I probably wouldn't be here today.
Amen.
And that mentor knows, like, just how much she means to me. Because I go and stand in the corner, and I'm like, I don't want to be seen. I hope no one sees me. And I was, like, wearing, heavy clothing. I was like, okay, I'm just here to listen, learn. Hopefully I can heal a little bit. And then I'm going in the back of the corner. So I did. And she literally went like this in between people, grabbed my hand, pulled me out, brought me to the front. She prayed over us. And she said, I have something special for you. She had these earrings, like a box that she opened up, and it was crown earrings. Really? She said, don't ever forget that you have a purpose. Right? So I'm like, oh my goodness, God. Like God was showing himself to me over and over and over again. I have not left you or forsaken you. I know that it broke God's heart what I went through. But he knew, hey, if you trust me, if you keep going, I'm going to use this to help others. And that kind of sparked in me of, oh, God hasn't forgotten me. Like he's still here. And here's the thing, like I never felt like he left me. He's always felt so close to me, but the confusion I felt, and they say that you will view God how you view your Heavenly Father. So my father never spoke life over me.
You mean your earthly father?
My earthly father never spoke life over me. And I'm not going to get into the details of the type of abuse, but I will say that I never learned my worth through my earthly father. And that's a huge hole. Yeah. And especially in a woman, if very we're not, so. It was like I was fatherless without being fatherless. And so I viewed God as I trusted him, but also you're going to betray me. I trust you in a sense. It was very like black and white. Like I trust you and I have faith, but you're going to turn on me in any second, or you're going to realize that I'm not really worthy. Like that's what I thought. Right. And for me, having this mentor kind of just speak this life over me. And at that day that we met, she then stayed in contact with me and I shared with her what I was going through. And she became like that person that was always checking in and was like, you were made for more. Michelle, you were made for more. But I mean, I know it was not easy. It was not easy because I had so much to deconstruct. But she's a Christian woman. And I will say, like, man, the grace she gave me. But she kept saying, Michelle, like, you don't belong in there. And you know it. You know it. And here's the crazy thing. I had a handful of clients that would come in just to talk to me. And I was like the stripper therapist. That's what they called me.
Oh my gosh.
And it was like God was still working. Isn't that crazy?
He's always working.
Like God works even in dark places.
Yes.
Like, and I learned not to put him in a box. Don't put God in a box because he can move anywhere. And a lot of the time we think, oh, well, he'll never work in a strip or like he'll never move in a strip club. But I saw it with my own eyes. And the conversations, God would use my clients to speak to me. And I can't tell you how many times I had clients say, what are you doing in here? Like, you're too smart. Right. Not saying smart women can't be in there. There's a lot of smart women in there. But like, they kept like speaking that. And I'm like, and it kept hitting my spirit. Like, even my clients are seeing this. They want to pay me to sit and talk to them and therapize them, but also they're encouraging me. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
I've never shared this on a public platform, by the way.
That is so cool, though, how God can just show up at the most unexpected places.
Yes. Wow. Yeah, it's crazy. But in that time, I started to kind of like, okay, God, let's start from scratch now. Let's start from square one. I want you to help rebuild my faith and my relationship with you in an authentic way. And what I found is rock bottom is like the best way to like to be, because then you're literally completely shattered from these false ideologies, and now you're rebuilding on a solid foundation, right? And that's kind of whenever at age 21, I kind of just started rebuilding my relationship with God. I got a job working at a hotline. It was a crisis hotline. I'm helping pregnant women who were homeless and needing resources. So I started doing that work. And that kind of encouraged me to kind of see what else does God have for me. And I just kind of started rebuilding. And I went, man, when I tell you therapy, like go to therapy, guys. Like go to
so
therapy.
Important. It's interesting you talk about your mentor. Your mentor sounds a lot like sponsors that I would have in sobriety. It's almost the same thing. They're encouraging you. They're staying on you. You know, they're the person that says you're made for more. You got this. So it's so cool that you've had that. Like it almost very similar to how I've had it in sobriety. And those people are so important.
They are.
And those people had to go through what they went through to become that for you. The same way that you have had to go through, because you are that for so many other people. And, you know, it's the students right now, but I can see you 10 years from now on stages with hundreds of thousands of people and speaking, and women's lives being changed because of your story. And so I just am reminded that although these bad things happen to us, God gives us double for our trouble. He takes us from one place of glory to another. And so it's just really beautiful to see you in this season now and to hear all that. I didn't know all of that. And so it was like, wow, you have come so far. You have come so far. Yeah. And it's beautiful to sit here and see who you are and watch you be a mom and your life and not have any idea that you've walked through all that. Because girl, you don't smell like smoke. You've been
God
through
will
the
do that.
fire.
He will literally-
But you do not smell like smoke.
But that was something I had to learn, is how to take care of myself again. Because when your worth or identity is shattered, abuse literally like penetrates the innermost parts of you and shatters it.
Yes.
And for me, I literally, when I tell you I lost my worth, I don't think everyone understands that. You don't understand unless you've experienced it, where you literally have to work hard just to see yourself worthy enough to shower, worthy enough to eat, worthy enough to like take care of yourself in the small things that we think, oh, well, that's natural. No, like my whole identity was literally ripped from me. And I had to retrain myself how to take like self-care, basic self-care things. But the heaviness of depression that I experienced and the suicidal ideation, and I did have a suicide attempt. And that happened when everything with my dad, about 3-4 years after I was assaulted, everything with my dad came forth. And we were like, okay, it can go to court. And the church that I grew up in, doing ministry in, the pastor used church funds to pay for my dad's lawyer to protect my dad.
Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Yeah. And we were pretty much iced out, me and my twin sister. So me and my twin sister were the ones that were really speaking out about the things that he did. And when it all kind of started coming to the surface, you know, it was not received. Me and my twin were very much left out. It was, and I'm so grateful I have my twin sister.
Young.
Yeah, I was in my early 20s at this point. And this was the first time that it was kind of becoming reality of what my dad did. You know, we lived in a White House picket fence. We were that family that we'd come to church every Sunday, and you would, you know, you smile. Even if, like, me and my twin were always hurting from a very young age. We always had the signs of being abused. It was just something we just had to deal with, right?
What are the signs?
Well, depression is a huge one. So
I think that's good for like our audience to know, especially with so many women. Like, what would be the sign to look for? Because your own child could be suffering and you might not know, or a niece. I've seen that.
So depression is one of them. I think that was a main one, especially for my twin. She would be in her room in the dark, started at a young age. She didn't want to be around people. The self-loathing, I guess. So, you know, looking back, I'm like, I really didn't know my worth ever. And I think that's why I put so much of my value even more into my purity and just kind of focus it on there. Okay, this is my entire worth here, because I already struggled with knowing my worth because of the environment I was in. But the women were definitely very, you don't have a voice. So my mom, she lost her voice when she was 18 and she met him. And she had her own struggles. So and mental health, struggling with her mental health was definitely there. So I think we kind of picked up on that too. But yeah, the main sign was depression. But honestly, I don't think we ever showed it in public. So you would have never, people just thought we were, I've been there. I was so good at hiding and being fake.
Oh my gosh, I was so good at
Can we talk about this, please? Because this is so real. Because I literally, and I have to catch myself still till this day. When I'm at events and stuff, I have to constantly ask myself, am I just acting as though I think I need to act in this environment, or am I truly being Michelle?
Yes.
And I have to check myself all the time, because it's been programmed in me from a young age.
I'm the same way. You see it. You see me at church and hi. I am like that for the most part, because I say hi to people in the grocery store. They probably think I'm weird. But yeah, I was trained my whole life to give off perfection. That's why I started the first podcast, Progress Over Perfection, because I was like, I'm not doing this. I mean, I can remember my dad was a smoker, and we could not let the church know that my dad was a smoker.
So you had to hide that.
We had to hide it. We pulled into the church parking lot, and Bath and Body Works spray is getting thrown in the back seat. Spray yourself. Everyone spray yourself down. Like, yes, it was that level of perfection. And then when they found out he was a smoker, they kicked him off of teaching. So I then realized why we had to spray down with Bath and Body Works and smelled weird. But yeah, we had a lot of that growing up, that it was like we had to put forth perfection. We had to look a certain way, our hair, our makeup. I remember like being 13, my mom throwing a makeup bag in the back seat on the way to church. It's like, you look a mess, put some makeup on. I wouldn't want my 13-year-old to wear makeup now. You look gorgeous. Put some lotion on and lip gloss and call it a day. But like, it was all about like how we looked. And so there wasn't abuse in my family, but there were things that just were hidden, that weren't healthy to be hidden, you know?
Can we talk about, do you feel like we are being more open to imperfection in the church? Because I think a lot of people can relate to that, of you go to church to be fake, and it's so unfortunate. And I think for me, just kind of entering back into church, and I told myself, I am not going to, if I don't feel like leading or being part of a group, I'm not going to do it. Because my whole life I was, you're in ministry, you have to lead, you have to do this. And I found myself, anytime I go try out a new church, they immediately want to put me in leadership. Like, okay, I know God's called me to be in leadership one day, but I want to make sure it's because God's telling me to do it and not just what's expected of me. And that was hard.
Because you're charismatic, or because you're bubbly. A lot of times church is very drawn to that. So you said, do I think churches are good at handling?
Do you think they're getting better at being more open to imperfection in the church? Where is it becoming more safe?
Yes and no, I would say.
Yeah.
Yes, if you are really working on your relationship with God, staying in your word, like, you know, not putting so much into the church building itself and people. But there are people within the church building that want to keep their spot. So they portray something that is different than who they really are.
Which is so sad, because
it's
how does God move
exactly
when we're being fake? And I mean, he can move in any situation.
I'm watching it unfold in front of my eyes right now.
But how, like, eventually it's going to crash.
Yeah, it will.
And it's so sad that we feel like we have to do that. And I had to catch myself in this new church environment, is to be all of me. And if I'm not accepted, that's okay, because Jesus accepts me, God accepts me. Thankfully, I have been welcomed with open arms, and this is new for me, because even with my story, I feel like when I started entering back into ministry after, the sex industry, after the assault, after everything came out with my dad, I felt like I was a disease.
On the next episode of the Progress Podcast, the day that church is no different than Target. Everybody that goes to Target goes to church. So the same crazy people that are over at Target trying to cut you off in the parking spot could be the same crazy person that's sitting on the same row as you.
They're not God.
They are not God. And so, there's a lot of manipulation with that in the church. And I've seen that almost in every single church I've been in most of my life, because it's run by people.
Yeah.